Hello, Govind. I'm so sorry it's taken so long for me to get to this interview. The kids have been off on half term and we went to Oxford to see my family. My son's just in the other room, being a bit noisy. He's 6 years old. Anyhow, so I have your interview questions here, and I haven't really prepared anything. I thought that I would just speak off the cuff, really. So, your first question: when did you first realise you wanted to be a writer? When I was a little girl, probably about 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I just thought that that must be one of the most wonderful things in the world, to create your own stories from your imagination and take people on journeys and adventures. My grandmother asked me what I wanted to be, and I said I wanted to be an orphan. And she laughed and she asked me what an orphan did. And I said, an orphan writes books. And she said, you mean an author? And so that was always a family joke. However, I didn't actually become a proper writer until I was until about 4 years ago. So when I was 37 years old, after giving birth to my second child. So I used to teach English as a foreign language. I also taught yoga and I taught science in various countries. So in Indonesia for 1 year, and China for 3 years, and South Korea for 1 year. Anyhow, teaching's quite a tiring job, as you probably know. You're constantly communicating with people and helping people, and it can get quite exhausting, especially teaching English as a second language. So after being exhausted from having 2 babies, one day I just said to my husband, when both of the kids go to school, I don't want to go back to teaching. And he said, well, why don't you write a book? And he said, that's always been your dream to write a book, hasn't it? And I said, yeah, you're right. So I wrote a book, and that turned into a series, and now I've written about three and a bit series. I met an author who lives in my village in England, and he's fairly successful. He writes urban fantasy, and he introduced me to self-publishing and Amazon Kindle, and I thought that's a great idea. And I thought that if I wrote 20 books, I might be able to make a living. But to be honest, I'm not making a living. So I'm having my first job interview in God knows how many years, to teach some Chinese children online. Anyway, I'm not going to stop writing. I'm going to keep writing, but it's nice to earn a little bit of money on the side while I am waiting to become financially successful from my writing. Sorry, I didn't really answer your question properly there. Right. So another part of question 1 is, how do you develop your plot and characters? Okay, so to begin with, when I decided I wanted to write a book, I just Googled different plotting methods, and one that really struck me was the snowflake method by what's his name? Randy Ingerson or something. I'm not 100% sure, but I promise you that if you search the snowflake method, you will see who I'm talking about. And this man is also a physicist. He's got a very scientific, logical mind, and I really liked his method of plotting. So I used the snowflake method, starting with the characters. So the main characters, they all have their own story, and then you write about a page and a half for each character, and you can write a bit about their history too, so you understand them better. And then eventually you join all of those storylines together. Anyway, search for it on the internet, the snowflake method. And that is what I probably did for 3 or 4 years. I always did the snowflake method for my first series and my second series. Yeah. So, my first series actually took me a long time to write. It took me 2 or 3 years to write until I published it. Whereas my other books, they can sometimes take me about 1 month to write. That's about 40,000 words though. So they are fairly short books. Anyhow, so I I just thought the snowflake method, that is the real deal. And that is the plotting method I used for quite a few years. And I also used motivation reaction units in scenes and sequels. And I learnt about that through the same man who invented the snowflake method, though I think that motivation reaction units may have been invented by somebody else, but they're absolutely fantastic. I love that. So you start the scene, the character wants something at the beginning of the scene, and by the end of the scene, the character, it's impossible for the character to achieve his or her desire, and then they have two choices. Both of the choices are very bad and they have to choose one, and then at the end of the scene they want to do something else, and then the sequel, or is that at the end of the sequel? Anyhow, so for many years I used motivation reaction units as the micro plot, and then the snowflake method as the larger plot. But I have to say that sometimes my cosmic mind would go off on a tangent and things would change in my series. So for example, my first series is a mishmash of subgenres, and other authors have told me, there's too many themes, that's why it's difficult to market. So I did bring time travel into my first series, and I hadn't even planned that in my snowflake method at all. So while it was working in making me feel confident, also I like to change things up. Hence, when I reached, I think one of the books in my second series, I was feeling really depressed, and one of my mum friends, she said to me, "Hey, you all right? You're going to be writing today?" And I said, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Yeah, not really feeling very happy about it." And then when I came home, I reflected on that, and I thought, I know why I don't feel happy about the scene I'm going to write. It's because I already know what's happening. So then I watched a YouTube video on a 20 books to 50k conference on YouTube, and one of the Star Wars writers, he was talking about how he writes into the dark, and I wish I could share the URL with you so you could watch that, but that was a long time ago and I haven't watched it again since, and I'm afraid I don't have that URL. But you could, it's also called pansting, but I prefer the term writing into the dark, and I was really attracted by that, so I started writing into the dark. So now I plot or I write into the dark. It depends what I'm writing. So my most recent series, called Yufu's Run, I was writing a new genre, which was techno thriller along with space opera. Now, I hadn't really written thriller before, and I bought a really good book about how to plot for writing thriller. If you look on my Instagram page, I think I definitely posted that book on how to write different types of thrillers. So for my first book, Yufu's Run 1, I followed a sequence, sorry, that's my naughty boy, called Amateur on the Run. And that was really good. And I've had loads of good feedback about that book. So I'm not saying it's bad to plot. I think plotting is really, really good. But I also think that writing into the dark can have its advantages too. After I wrote the first book, I felt very confident about where things were going. And my second book was written into the dark. And then my third book, which was really fun, that was written into the dark and that had thriller elements. But when I reached my fourth book of Yufu's Run, so Yufu's Run 4, I was starting to feel unconfident again because I knew I needed to have a major space battle, which I'd never written before in any of my space opera books. Most of them were planetary based. And also I had quite a military plot as well. So for the fourth book, I followed a plot sequence from that thriller book called Techno Thriller. Yeah, so that was a techno thriller plot line, and I quite enjoyed writing that. Anyway, sorry, I'm going on and on and on. So yeah, so I do both now. At the moment, I'm writing in a completely different genre because I don't feel very confident that I don't feel very confident about space opera. I'm not making much money in it. Maybe I just need to learn more advertising. I'm not sure, but I'm starting to, I've created a new pen name and I'm writing in a subgenre of romance. Jamie, can you not, please? Okay, sorry. Right. Question 2. What books have most influenced your life? That's a really difficult question. When I was a child, I used to read lots of point horror books. I was absolutely obsessed with them. So whenever I got any birthday money or vouchers for Christmas or anything, I would go with my mum into Oxford and I would go straight to a shop called W.H. Smith's, and I'd run upstairs and I would go to the young adult section, even though I was probably only 10 or 11 years old, and I would buy as many point horror books as I could. So of course they were all horror books written by different American authors, and I don't really think they influenced my life much. When I was a child, I loved horror films, I loved horror books, anything scary. I loved roller coasters, but things change when you get older. Then when I was a teenager, I loved reading fantasy books. Now, of course, I read C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, you know, the typical... I mean, I'm from Oxford, so I had to read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and everything. But to be honest, I'm not meaning to sound sexist, but I discovered as a teenager that I actually preferred reading fantasy written by women. I'm not sure if that's because they show their emotions more, or because a lot of the fantasy books written by men are really focused on fighting and war, and women are interested in other things, you know, other aspects. I mean, it's okay to have some war, but not just focusing on it for pages and pages and pages. That was quite boring for me. So I would search the library for female names on fantasy books, which is really funny. So I really liked Mercedes Lackey, her fantasy books about dragons and elves and things. And I also liked Sarah Ash. She had a lovely trilogy about dragons. Anyhow, I kind of stopped reading while I was living in East Asia for maybe about a decade, which is crazy because I love reading. Jamie, please, can you go away? Sorry. And then when I had my children, which is any woman and father also knows that having babies can be quite tiring and exhausting, you know, with lack of sleep and everything. So I treated myself and I bought George R.R. Martin's massive box sets, you know, The Song of Ice and Fire, also known as the Game of Thrones, the TV movie. By the way, if you read that, you will see that it is not completely filled with sex and everything like the movies. I mean, Hollywood, was it Hollywood that produced it? They really sexed it up, but originally it's not like that if you read the books. Absolutely fantastic. So to cut a very, very long story short, I would say that George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire series inspired me to write, because when I read that, I thought I would love to write this kind of thing. And just the most inspirational thing for me was his multi-point of view characters, his POV characters. I was just absolutely inspired how a big burly man with a big full beard could write from the point of view of Sansa Stark. And just all of the point of view characters were so different. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing, really. And in my first series, I had a very multiple point of view character series also. But yeah, it wasn't as good as George R.R. Martin's, that's for sure. But hey, I mean, you need to write loads and loads and loads and loads, don't you? Until your writing gets really good. So I still have to improve on a lot. Right. Okay, so... Right, tell us about your space opera books. So as I said, my first series called Planete Slaves, also known as the Fire Snake series, that is a very multiple point of view. It's got lots of mysticism in it, as well as space opera and metaphysical science fiction. There's like shamanism in it. It's a whole mishmash of subgenres, and I've been criticized and complimented on that fact. Yeah, so but because there's so many different points of view characters, I knew that some readers, they wouldn't like that. They just want to read one point of view character, or two or three. So what I did is, after I wrote that series, that 5-book series, I copied and pasted scenes from 3 of the main characters, and I created omnibus books from them. They all join together in the end, but they have very different points of views. So one character is, he looks African American, but he's not African American because there's no Africa, there's no Earth in that galaxy. And he's a black guy, basically. His name's Akachi, and he's like a futuristic spy. And then he's a main character, and he has a son who has his own book too. And the son's only 5 years old, but he becomes a time traveler and a special shape-shifting spy as well. And his name's Maki. So that book's called Maki the Superhero. And Akachi's called Akachi's Fire Snake. And then another main character is called Yufu, and he looks East Asian, like Chinese or Japanese or something. My husband's Chinese, so some of Yufu's cultural background and heritage is actually taken from what I learned from the Chinese culture. So Yufu's a major character. He's in my first series and touched on briefly in my second series, but then I have a whole series based on him and his adventures called Yufu's Run. That has no magic, no time travel, because the amethyst pyramids, which are the time portals, they've been closed. So yeah. Sorry, there's a lot I could talk about those series. You're always welcome to check out my Instagram page, where there's a few videos I've posted up, and that is called @Rayner Ye Author. Okay, what made you decide to set your books in space in a time distant from our own? I love science fiction. I love science too. I used to teach science in an international school in Shanghai, only for 1 year, and they absolutely loved me. But my husband, he got a Cisco expert certificate in Shanghai too, and he got offered a very good job. So we both came back to England. And I didn't teach science again, but I love science. My first degree was environmental biology. I'm more interested about the possibility of I definitely think there's got to be life on other planets. I'm very, very interested in life on other planets. I'm very interested in biological life. Of course, I'm very interested in black holes and physics and astrophysics and things as well. I just think it's a lovely, lovely thought. That there must be lots of other worlds out there, and I'm kind of otherworldly. I'm a bit eccentric, and yeah, I don't know really. I just really, really like that thought. But to be honest, it's funny because I haven't really read much space opera, and when I do read space opera, well, so far there's a few books I've enjoyed, but some of them I don't really enjoy very much. So it's just something I really enjoy writing about. I just like to use my imagination. What if, And 5 months before I started planning my first series, for 5 whole months, I did a lot of research on NASA about exoplanets and Goldilocks zones and things like that. And I designed my 7 solar system Planet Alliance. I designed the planets and I designed their suns. I thought carefully about the life. I designed the life on the planets. Of course, there was always room to do more. I mean, my creatures are not very exotic, for example, and the humans are very humanoid looking, just with different colour skin. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. I'm absolutely fascinated. I'm fascinated in exoplanets, in Goldilocks zones, and even the possibility of life on planets that don't have liquid water. Even though the UK is such a developed nation, with quite a modern culture, what has restricted you from revealing your own identity in your work till now? Okay, I haven't always pretended I'm a man. Only for 1 month I pretended I was a man. So I was just getting really wound up, like, oh, I'm not making much money selling my space opera. And when of course, advertising comes into it, and I still need to learn. I mean, I just keep failing with advertising, Facebook advertising, Amazon advertising. So there's a lot I need to learn, of course. And I'm going to take Mark Dawson's advertising course this summer. It's incredibly expensive. It's like £1,000, but I discussed it with my husband, and he said it's worth the investment because I'll be studying a lot, and it's a lifetime course as well, and it adapts and it modifies with the changing times with advertising on social media and the like. So I will be taking that. But anyhow, so I just got a bit upset because when I looked at my also boughts on Amazon, all of the men, I mean, all of the other authors, they're like white men. And I'm pretty sure, well, most of them are Canadian and American too. I don't know, but it just seemed like they're doing so much better. I mean, maybe I'm just being paranoid, I'm not sure. But being a blonde and attractive woman, sorry, that sounds really egotistical, but being a blonde and attractive woman, I have been treated differently all of my life compared to, let's say, if I was a man. And that's just the way it is, because when men look at women, they think, oh, beautiful, oh, she can bear children and the like. They don't think, she could tell a good story, or she's very intelligent. I mean, I don't mean to put all I don't mean to put all men in a box, but men in England are very much like that. And the blonde head bimbo joke is something which is very normal. I mean, even my brother and my father would call me a blonde head bimbo, like out of affection and everything. But that's not the kind of thing you say to your daughter, who loves science and is excelling at school. You don't call her a blonde head bimbo. So there we go, yeah. So I changed my appearance. I used an app on my mobile phone, a gender-changing app, and I look quite handsome, actually. I got some comments, oh, you make a handsome male, and I had a beard, and it even changed my clothes, so I had like a cool denim jacket on. But I quickly changed that back because I thought it's not right. It's not right to lie to people, and I will succeed. I will succeed. Yeah, I've just started doing some yoga, this yoga kriya called Subaya, the Subaya kriya. I just started 2 days ago. So I'm hoping that will help me to succeed, because it would be, I'm not a materialistic person. I'm very grateful for the health and happiness of my family and my children and my friends and myself as well. I have self-love. But I have been striving to make a profit from writing. I mean, I've published 15 space opera books. They're only about 40,000 words each, but I've been striving and striving and striving. And things will get better. They are getting better. I mean, people are reading my stuff, but I think it might still be a long way off. But now I've moved to this romance genre. It's a crazy romance genre. You probably wouldn't be very impressed, but I think there's money to be made in it. And I am searching for money, really. I want to make a living from writing. I mean, I'm having an interview on Wednesday to teach Chinese children, but I'll just do minimal hours, and it should bring some happiness into my soul, because I love Chinese children. And it would be nice to help other people as well, not just concentrate on my writing all the time. But I will continue writing and publishing. Okay, so yes. So me changing my face to a man is not just because of UK culture, because probably about 90% of my audience from Amazon Kindle, I just sell exclusively on Amazon Kindle, KDP Select and Kindle Unlimited. People can borrow from Kindle Unlimited. 90% of my readers are from the United States. Yeah, so it's not necessarily a UK thing, it's a Western thing. But come on, like in India's a very sexist country as well. The whole world needs to be changed, really, especially as there are lots of goddesses. People need to respect their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, and other women as well. We all need a hero. Tell us about your protagonists. Was there real life inspiration behind him or her? My first protagonist, her name's Adra in my first series. She's a redhead. I'm slightly strawberry blonde, but she's a proper redhead, like curly red hair, very pale skin, freckles. And she's based on me. Her story's based on me feeling trapped when I was in Oxford. And she lives in Oxfire. So Nerthus is kind of based on, planet Nerthus is kind of based on Earth, really. It's similar to Earth. It has one moon. It has the same kind of sun. The equator's tropical. But there's very, very futuristic technology in some of the, in most of the world, actually, there. Anyhow, she does a degree and she does yoga like me, but in that series it's called Union. She does Union, she's spiritual, she also practices shamanism, astral projection and things. Even though that's not focused on much, it's just kind of touched on a little bit. Her spirit guardian is an owl woman hybrid from another planet. She only finds out later in the series that it's not actually just part of her imagination, but this owl hybrid, her spirit guardian, really does exist on another planet in the Planet Alliance. So she's kind of based on me. She goes off 5 light years away to seek a new life. Her boyfriend breaks her heart, and she goes to planet Kwanja, 5 light years away, and she gets a job teaching her mother tongue. So that was a bit like me, because I left Oxford and I went to Indonesia and taught English as a foreign language in Jakarta. So it's really, really based on Indonesia. So the fire snake is based on Indonesia. It's an archipelago of volcanic islands. Yes, so she was totally based on me. She becomes paralyzed at the end of the series, and then really nothing else is written in her point of view. But in the second series, the readers find out that she gets neural regeneration surgery, and she can walk again, which is really nice. But it's not from her perspective. It's from the little boy Maki's perspective. Yeah, so I've got lots and lots of protagonists really in the first series. And then there's Yufu, he looks Chinese. And there's Akachi, he looks Black African. And there's Maki, he's like mixed race. He looks like, say, half Black African and half maybe Anglo-Saxon. That's how he looks. And then oh my gosh, I've got lots of main characters. Yes. In the second series, one of the main characters, he's a villain, and he's got massive black bug eyes, and he's a chairman. He's called Chairman Jacopo, and he's a villain. I've got lots and lots of protagonists, really. My husband's Chinese, so I guess Yufu could be based on him a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But not as well. He's very different to my husband as well. Right. Da-la-la-la. Okay, what real life inspirations did you draw from the world building within your book? So as I said, when I lived in Indonesia, my first series, it's pretty much based on Indonesia, really. It's called The Fire Snake, and it's an archipelago of volcanic islands, and the people, they're called native Reds. They're very similar to Indonesians, and Adra, she experiences quite a lot of racism, like I did when I lived in Indonesia. I was called a bule. She's called a noctar, but the racism, it's kind-hearted. It's not cruel. It's just like when I lived in East Asia. People, of course, they noticed me all the time, like a white blonde woman. And that was annoying, because always being noticed for what you look like, that was totally annoying. Like every single day, when you're living in the damn country, you can speak the language, you're hanging out with the natives and stuff. I mean, I always kept away from expats. I always kept away from them. Okay, maybe I had a few expat friends, actually. When I lived in Bali, I taught yoga to Tourists, yeah. So yeah, I did have quite a few expat friends at that point, but I could speak Indonesian by then. I had lots of Indonesian friends, or like jazz musician friends and stuff. So yeah, it's based on my time in Indonesia. Funnily enough, I haven't really written about my time based in China, but my more recent military space opera books, Yufu's Run and Cyborg Assassin, they're very much based on wars between capitalists and communists. So I got a lot of ideas about communism from China, but also from what I had heard when I taught English as a foreign language to South Koreans in South Korea. I had children students, but I also had adult students, and they actually taught me so much. They're such intelligent people, the Koreans. They taught me a lot, really, about North Korea and South Korea and the atrocities. But also, my husband's from mainland China. I've also learnt about good aspects of communism too, as well as negative aspects. And I've seen many negative aspects with capitalism. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing about that. Actually, I'm not even a military woman. I mean, I'm a hippie, I'm a yogi, but I did enjoy writing the military space opera because it was quite emotional, and it does look at problems with class systems and the like. So yeah, I think living in a communist country helped me with that. And right, okay. Are there therapeutic benefits to modelling a character after someone you know? I think it was therapeutic writing about Adra because she's totally based on me, really. And you know how people can be shy to talk about themselves, especially their true selves, especially their spiritual selves. It was nice to share some metaphysical beliefs. At one point, Adra becomes a slave. She has to mine selenite from deep inside a volcano, just above the magma chamber. And every day, it's like there's a high possibility of death. And she watches the slaves daily, like dying, from lack of oxygen or starvation. But then she starts teaching them yoga. It's called Union in that series, and she heals a lot of them. Like, she helps to straighten their spines and they become stronger and things. So yeah, I enjoyed writing about that. My first series is about smashing interstellar sex slavery rings. I know it's really, really dark, and I'm so against human trafficking. I hate slavery. I hate human trafficking. So why do I write about it? I write about it because, in a way, when my protagonists, they bring down mafias and things like that, and they rescue people in a strange way, I feel like I am rescuing people as well, rescuing innocent people who deserve to be loved and nourished. So it can be therapeutic in that way. Okay, how do you think space opera stories can approach the concept of empires in a different way than other genres? Well, you can use your imagination and to expand politics, different types of politics. Probably something I haven't done enough, really. But yeah, if you give it a fictional setting and you give them futuristic technology, stuff we haven't invented yet, then you can think about all of the pros and cons of different technology. That's why I really enjoyed writing Yufu's Run. The series hasn't finished yet, but that explores cyborgs and like cyborg armies and hacking into a cyborg army. The cyber terrorists, they hack into a cyborg army and nearly kill the whole population of a world. So that's what I love about techno thriller. It's about technology going wrong, and if you do that in a sci-fi or space opera setting, you can think about futuristic technology, which is probably quite close to being invented, or it's being invented in underground labs already, but it's completely illegal because of ethics, human ethics. But maybe I'm talking more about science and technology now rather than galactic empires. But it's the same thing with galactic empires in a way. If the world building's different, then you just use your imagination, don't you? And so I've done that with religious terrorists and communism and capitalism and things with different settings. Sorry, I probably didn't answer that very well. I've never really been that into politics, but it's enjoyable to write about galactic empire. What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book? That's a really difficult one, but because I know some writers, they've made it just by going ahead and writing and publishing. And I don't want to say don't do that. But I wasn't very confident. I wasn't sure. I needed some advice. I didn't want to ask advice from my family who don't even read. I didn't want to ask for advice from romance readers. I mean, I'm writing sci-fi, so what I did is I joined a online, so a website. It's called the nextbigwriter.com. It's all joined together, the nextbigwriter.com, and I paid just £4 every month. And what I would do is so authors, they would put their work up on the website and then they would critique each other's work. But you had to read enough chapters and make enough suggestions and critiques. You highlight the parts of the paragraphs and then you write in the little box what you think about that, how it could be changed, or if you like it, or what you suggest. And then when you've done that enough, you gain enough points to post your own chapter up, and then people will critique you back. So I was actually part of the nextbigwriter.com for 3 years before I published my first series, and I really think it helped a lot. From experience and from listening to other authors, I just learned so much more than I could learn from reading books about writing. So I got lots of critique from various authors. My first chapter I posted, it sucked. I had so many negative comments from so many authors, but I sucked it all up. I let my ego go, I opened my heart, and I listened to what they said, and I tried again. I edited the chapter again and again and again until those comments became good. And then I wrote my next chapter, and maybe there were some negative comments again, and I just kept trying. I kept re-editing again and again, and in the end, those comments became good, like show, don't tell, and just a whole bunch of stuff. It was just really, really good. So I would strongly recommend anyone else to do that. But that might be the wrong advice because not everyone is the same. Okay, sorry. How did you... Yeah, and for creating plot lines, I would say just look at all the different ways you can plot. There's a lot on the internet, and choose which one you fancy, really. Or you could write off the seat of your pants, also known as writing into the dark or pantsing it. But if you're a brand new writer, I'm not sure really. I don't want to give you the wrong advice, because lots of other authors would disagree with me if I said, join the nextbigwriter.com or a similar kind of software program. How do you come up with character names for your stories? Sometimes I just make it up straight away, but most often I use a name generator. So on the internet there are several different types of name generators. What's the common one I use? I think it's called Jon&Jon. It's a scientific name generator. You can make names up for worlds, countries, spaceships, religions, different humanoid names, all kinds. So yeah, the name generators are really, really fun to use. I usually use those mostly now, but in my first series, I made a lot of the names for the planets and things are Mandarin names for various words, and also Korean words as well. Yeah, so Melida, which is a fertile moon that orbits a gas giant. Melida in Mandarin, it means beautiful, and it is a beautiful world. It's a utopia. And then Nerthas, which is based on kind of planet Earth, similar to planet Earth, but more futuristic. I think there's a goddess called Nerthas. And then Ipoyo, that's another planet. That means beautiful in Korean. So initially I started by naming things, and lots of, actually, I used Indonesian language as well for some of the names, but now I just use the name generator instead, because I don't write just for myself anymore. My first series was very much written just for myself, and now I'm trying to write more to market. And most of my readers are kind of American people, yeah, who might not be able to speak other languages. So I just use the name generators now. Right. When you're writing an emotional or difficult scene, how do you set the mood? I like to add the senses, maybe not all 5 at once, but I like to add the senses, what it looks like, smells like. Not too much, of course. I don't want to overload the scene with the senses. I always write motivation reaction units. I always write them, even though I don't necessarily follow the snowflake method for every book anymore, and I write into the dark. I still follow a kind of motivation reaction unit, and because I like to write more quickly, and also when I'm walking around the forest with my dictaphone, I dictate quite quickly. Instead of coming up with it, I just say, show fear, for example. So let's say I'm writing a scene, and you could say, 2 guards were walking up the path. New paragraph. Show fear, period. Open quote. And then she says something, period, close quote. So my manuscript ends up having lots of show fear, show lust, show guilt, show jealousy, show anger, show panic, etc., etc. And then I try to leave it until the end of the book now, until I finish writing the book, and I'm going to edit it, and then I go through my emotional thesaurus. I have quite a few emotional thesauruses, and then I just search on my Word document, show grief, for example, and then I'll look for grief on my emotional thesaurus, and there's lots of different ways of showing it. So, for example, her rib cage constricted and she sniffed, or something like that, or hot tears welled in her eyes and she looked away. I try not to use too many adjectives. I try not to use adjectives much at all. So I like to show emotions rather than using lazy adjectives to describe them. So yeah, emotional thesauruses all the way. And I probably should get some new emotional thesauruses, actually, because I probably use the same expressions quite a lot throughout my different books. So that's how I show emotion. Sometimes when I'm writing action scenes, I find it's really good walking around the forest and dictating into my MP3 player. And I have some software called Dragon Dictate. When I come home, I plug it into my computer and it transcribes what I said. Okay, I have to admit I have to edit that a lot, but that really, really helps. I'm doing that because when I'm writing an action scene, I might start walking faster as my my heart pumps the blood around my body more quickly because of the adrenaline and excitement. According to you, what is the most difficult part of the writing process, and what are common traps for new authors? I'm not sure what's the most difficult part of the writing process, because you adapt and evolve with time depending on how much you write. But a common trap is when authors, they just try to perfect every single sentence, or they just spend too long, worrying about the sentence structure and trying to make it sound really poetic or something. I think that can be a big mistake. I think it's better just keep writing, write. Don't lose momentum on little finicky things like that. You could do that at the end, sure, during one of your redrafting processes. But I think during the first draft, it's just good to get it out there, But hey, I mean, there are different methods. I mean, some authors, I quite like this. Some authors, they write 500 words and then they go back and they edit it really, really well. And then they write the next 500 words. And then at the end of the manuscript, they don't really change much else. I mean, of course, they'll edit again, just try and find any typos and things. But so there are different things to do. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about how one sentence sounds. Also, I think ego can get in the way too. I think that there's a lot of authors out there who maybe just written one book and they're very, very, very proud about it and everything, but they've just written one book. That's just my opinion though. I think it's good to write lots of books instead of just one. What's the difference between scenes and chapters? For me, I like to use the scene. I like to write scenes and sequels, but maybe I don't follow it as well as I used to. So a scene, I tend to write in different character point of views. So one scene will be one character's point of view. That's my own method, because I mean, some very good authors such as Philip Pullman, oh my gosh, I'm reading the trilogy to my 8-year-old daughter. We just love sitting together while I read it. He head hops a lot, but he is a fantastic author. So who am I to say what's right and wrong, really? But for me, one scene will be just one person's point of view. And then another scene, it might be the same person's point of view, or it might move to another person's point of view generally. And a chapter, for me, a chapter is between 2,000 and 3,000 words. Sorry, that's probably not a very good answer. Right, I've got to put the kids to bed in a minute. Okay, I've nearly finished now. What do you think is the best way to improve writing skills? Keep writing. And also get beta readers. That's really, really helpful, especially if they read that genre. Don't ask your parents or your siblings to do it. Get strangers, beta readers, to read through it and tell you what they like, what they don't like. Join something like thenextbigwriter.com. Oh, a good villain. I missed this one. A good villain is hard to write. How did you get in touch with your inner villain? Just easily. I just downloaded the cosmic information, really, and just, it's a bit like acting. Just imagine you do it. It's like meditating. Well, okay, maybe not meditating on one object like a flame or a flower, but it's like visualization. You put yourself in the scene. You shapeshift into that character's body. Yeah, and you write what you experience. For me, writing from the villain's point of view is very, very easy. And I'm not an evil person, but I've seen plenty of evil around me. I know that evil exists, so I can easily imagine that I'm one of those evil people. Oh, what do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused? I tell you what's really annoying recently. On my computer, things keep popping up. Like things that I don't need, like from New Scientist and Pinterest. and just people messaging me on Facebook all the time. It's so annoying. Like, since I changed my profile picture from a man to a woman, every day there's like men like messaging me all the time. Hello, beautiful, how are you? So annoying. I've just got to keep blocking them all the time. I must have blocked hundreds of men. Very, very annoying. So yeah, I need to get my husband to have a look at that, actually. So those pop-ups stop. Maybe I need to unsubscribe or something. I don't know. So that's really annoying. And my kids, my children, I can't write. I can edit when my children are around. I can design book covers when my children are around, but I can't write a new scene when my kids are shouting and screaming or, you know, even watching TV. Yeah, so lots of things can be very distracting. So I better think about that, because in the summer holidays, they're going to have 6 weeks off in the summer holidays. Maybe I'll just put some noise cancelling earphones on, you know. Not all of the time, of course. I need to entertain them as well. What do you think is the best way to improve your writing skills? Oh, yeah, I said that already. Diddly. Do you have anything specific you want to say to the space opera fans, community members? Anything specific? Not really. Okay, you can read my books if you like, see if you like them. The first 2 series are a bit crazy, like metaphysical, but there's always like crime and thriller and stuff and political things going on. Yeah, I like to write about darks. It's all very dark. I like to write about dark stuff. And then Yufu's Run and Cyborg Assassin, there's no magic in those series at all. So if you're anything like my husband told me after I wrote my first 2 series, the magic is no magic. Maybe if you stop writing magic and time travel in your books, you'll do better. And yeah, lots of people do like my Yufu's Run series, but I'm still not doing that much better. But I think I need to be patient, and I need to keep writing more and more books. Really. So yeah, you could read my books if you like.